I'll keep my beaver. Thank you.
Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers from 3 countries, 2 continents, and featuring 5 guys separated only by the same language. Here's your host, Richard Morley.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, wherever you are listening. As always, I'm joined on the show tonight by Mr. Chris Cute.
Hello, how you doing?
Mr. Joe Whittaker.
You all right, Tom, yeah?
And Mr. Alan Robinson.
How are you, fellas?
And screaming all about his awesome new hat, it's Jamie Page.
How you doing?
You haven't got it on, though. You've got a different hat on. It's Mr. Hat. So just a super quick shout out run through for all of you who have been getting in touch and commenting, etc., on social media. We've got Christian Sandoval, Jim Dockrell, Mitch Peacock, Rob's Woodshop, Mike Fulton, Badger Workshop, KK Make, Ian Hay, Shogun Jimmy, Jason McGinn. So a big thank you to each and every one of you for getting in touch. Don't forget, if you're listening, you can rate us on iTunes as well. That's pretty cool. And get in touch across all our social media. I'm sure one of us will put all that information down in the descriptions for whatever platform you're listening on at the moment. So what are we going to talk about tonight, people? Is it, I think, Joe, do you want to introduce this? Because this is kind of your puppy.
Yeah, well, I was actually thinking about when we all actually get into making, or even if it's just a single project that we've got in mind, there's always some kind of obstruction that's in the way. Whether that's we haven't got the tools that we particularly need to do that job, or we haven't got the money for materials, or we just haven't even got the knowledge to even attempt the project itself. So I was really thinking it'd be good to talk about obstructions that we've had, things that we know we might face in the future, and how we can work around them, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds a pretty good one. I mean, straight off the bat, my initial one is going to be money, because that's always a consideration. Whatever it is, whatever your hobby is, money's going to be a consideration for people. But I think that's going to be pretty much the whole topic tonight. But if we get a chance at the end, I think we've got some questions that we've got to answer. Didn't somebody get some grief for not answering a question last week?
Yeah, I did. I got some grief off of Ragtie. He was sitting in a corner. He was sitting in a corner crying because we didn't get to answer his question last week.
Oh, bless him! I'll tell you what. Then, being as you got such grief from it, do you want to ask the question to start with? Then we'll flip back to Joe's topic, and then if we've got time, we'll flip back with all the other questions as well.
Yeah, all right. Ragtie wanted to know what we was all wearing.
Big old smile.
No.
There's a reason why we left that one out then.
There's a reason. Ragtime is the reason this is a podcast.
Basically, he wanted to know that if we had $2,000 and we could all spend it at one company, what would we buy? Now, I'd have to change it over to pounds because I don't use dollars, which would be $1,615.44. With that, I'd probably buy a Excalibur scroll saw or something, a high-end scroll saw, and probably a decent bandsaw of some description. So that's probably what I'd buy. So I don't know about you guys.
Fair answer, but I would definitely buy a beast of a bandsaw. But I'm used to using cheap tools. I'd go down to Canadian Tire and just completely re-outfit my entire shop. Just the entire thing, but not the bandsaw there, though. I would go above and beyond finding a nice, big, beefy bandsaw. That would be I don't think I've ever even put $2,000 into this shop. That's kind of hard to fathom.
Well, okay. Wow, I feel like an elitist now. I know I've got more than $2,000 in my shop. Anyway, actually, I'm glad that we missed this conversation or this question last week because it gave me a chance to research it, and I know exactly what I would do with that money. I would go out and buy, but you know what? The only thing I can't do is I can't stay within Ragtie's definition of buying it all from the same company. If I've got $2,000, I'm not going to just be brand loyal. I'm going to go buy what I want where I want. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy a rigid table saw from Home Depot. I'm going to get a Delta 14-inch bandsaw. I'm going to get a 10-inch dual bevel compound miter saw. I'm going to get a General International floor standing drill press, and I'm going to get a DeWalt cordless drill and drill driver set. That total would be $1,936. The $64 I would hang on to for shipping because I would, and I'm not trying to be a saint, I would give that away to somebody who doesn't have a shop. That's what I would do with it. Because
And a partridge in a pear tree.
I've got all the tools that I currently honestly need. And so if somebody gave me $2,000 to go get stuff, I would go use that $2,000 and give it to somebody else who doesn't have a shop but really wants one. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not applying for sainthood. I'm just saying I don't have a use for it. So I would give it away. Why not? Why wouldn't I?
Pay it forward.
Yeah.
That's super cool, actually. And being kind of virtually an only child, I wouldn't have thought of that because we all, only children have got sort of more of an inwards kind of selfishy outlook on things, I guess. But I was half expecting you to say I would buy a massive fridge and then just fill it full of beer.
Well, you know what? There is that option. So
now you come to mention it.
I don't think they. Well, if I could buy a big one for $2,000, okay. Nick's plan A. I'll go with Richard's idea. That's it.
What I would actually do with £2,000, if I had £2,000, I mean, similar to Chris, I've already got kind of the tools that I need, the tools that I use, but I haven't got the space to use. I mean, so £2,000 I would use to buy materials, and I would build a brand new workshop, fully insulated, lighting, its own electric source, because at the minute I'm just running off an extension lead into my bedroom window, heating, air conditioning, all that good stuff, so I'd actually have somewhere pleasant to go and work and do what I'm doing at the minute. But I think that would be the best way that I could spend my money, or maybe put the £2,000 towards a Festool drill and try and find the rest of the money some other way.
Because Festool drills cost more than $2,000. Is that what you're saying? Let me see. New larger workshop or a Festool drill? Let me think. When you put it in that perspective, Joe, I'd go with the larger shop myself.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a real tough one for me. I kind of agree with all of you. I was expecting Joe to say I'd buy 277 packs of Milliput or whatever it works out.
I've already got that though.
Well, yeah, potentially. You'd be able to fit it in your nice big new workshop. I don't know. I think I would buy a really super cool, like high-end Mac Pro computer, like a desktop version for doing, because you can use that for so many other things as well as like not just the whole video or anything. I can't think of anything I want, and that's really bizarre because I thought we always want something, we always want this, we always want that, but when you kind of pull it in and that, I genuinely cannot think of anything that I would do. So I think I'd probably buy a Mac, like a big super powerful one, and then, or maybe just do like a visit, go to the States, visit Chris, and go to Canada and visit Alan if they'd have me with a spotty handkerchief on a stick, something like that. That would be cool because you could do more with that than just making. I don't know.
Actually, I considered that answer, going on an American maker tour. Just go to meet all the makers.
Well, I don't know, because I know this British guy once who said quote, and he was talking to a guy in Canada, and this British guy said, "Dude, is Canadian beer better than the dishwater the guys south of the border serve?" And so, I mean, I
may have said that, yes.
Yeah. So, Richard, stay where you are.
So now you've said that, Chris, I'm inclined to agree that perhaps the Canadian beer is better, and you just don't want me knocking on your door to prove it.
I hate to break it to you, but it is better.
You know what? Knock on my door. I think I could prove you wrong. That's okay. All right. When are you coming to the States, Richard?
End of March.
Okay. You know what? I'm free. Stop on by.
Cool. That might, some people, when people say things like that to me, then they genuinely tend to regret it somewhere down the line.
I don't think I honestly don't think I will, because I will run video on Richard getting plastered in my shop. That'd be funny.
Oh, I wouldn't say I wouldn't get plastered. No, don't get me wrong.
Oh, no. If you come on my house, you're getting plastered. That's part of the deal.
That's a video I need to watch.
You're on. Right, shall we let's try and get back to Joe's thing. Poor old Joe's getting left out with all these shenanigans talking about wish lists and beer. So what's your biggest obstruction then, Joe? Is it the money, or is it the space, or
money is obviously going to be the most common problem that we'll all have, but I would think space is my current biggest obstruction to what I'm doing, because as I've been speaking about the past few weeks, I'm working on a kid's single bed. Now thankfully, being a kid's single bed, it's not all that big, but it's far too big to be building in my workshop. I'm having to be doing it in sections and then putting it together in my conservatory. So my mum and dad aren't too pleased that like the conservatory's full of all wood and sawdust and everything from what I'm putting together. But the way I try and get round the lack of space is by having everything in my workshop as being mobile, so I can really change the space to suit the certain project. Now it just so happens that this project that I'm working on at the moment is just far too big, but some of my smaller projects I'm able to maybe even move my workbench right up against the one side, tuck my bandsaw in along the side, get my table saw folded down round the back, then I've got all the one side of my workshop open, and then I'm able to work in that space. And also, weather permitting, I'm able to get all my tools out of the workshop and actually work outside for more space. So if there is anybody who's listening and like you've got a similar problem to me and you've got next to no space to actually work in, and you have got some kind of workshop and a collection of tools, do consider making them easily portable and easy to move around, and change your space constantly. It evolves all the while. Just don't be stuck with, I'm going to build in a workbench, build in cupboards, and it can, in no time, you take up all your space and you've got no room to do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a similar size space issue as well, and actually I've been asked by 2 or 3 clients potentially to build a kiddie's bunk bed and 2 arcade machines. Now that's space that I'm really thinking, how am I going to do this? You know, everything's got to be done in sections and all the rest of it. But what about time? Does anyone have a time aspect to their work as well? And I know, like Alan, you generally have to get things done at the weekends or over weekends. Is that a constraint for you?
Time can often be a constraint for me. Money is also a constraint for me. But my biggest, what are we calling it, obstruction, is knowledge. I've said in the past, I never make written plans for my work and sit there and work it out, step by step. But I do think in my head, okay, I have to do this, and then I have to do this. There's always one step that I just don't know how to do. And the best I can do to overcome that, other than just keep practicing, is I'm on Google and I'm on YouTube and watching other fellows do the same thing. And I learned how to do it myself. So yeah, knowledge is probably my biggest obstruction in woodworking. And time is a big one too. Don't get me wrong on that. Monday to Friday, I pretty much can't do any work. So I have to start Friday evenings, and by Sunday, I have to shut it down.
Right. So obviously you have, is it 3, 4 kids you've got? 3?
I have 3 kids.
3 kids.
Two of them being babies. So it gets pretty busy.
So 4 including yourself then?
Exactly, yes.
So obviously that time spent during the week for family. So do you ever get a chance to nip out to the shop for after the kids get to bed, or do you just deliberately close down?
My wife works midnights. Her time to sleep is when I'm home in the evenings Friday. So the babies are all mine.
Ooh, so you're daddy daycare during the week, or
yes.
the evenings.
Awesome.
You won't regret that later on in life, though.
I hope not.
You won't. Honestly,
I'm not regretting it now.
Okay, I'm thinking with Joe's got space, you've got time and knowledge. I'm assuming Chris and Jamie are going to say similar things in terms of
No, I am probably going to say something totally different.
Well, you're not allowed to say space with the size of your workshop, so you've officially been banned from. Joe's going to edit it out if you say space.
And lumber, because he mills his own. He's got a forest in his backyard.
You guys make it sound like I've got space like where you could park a friggin' 20-foot yacht in it. I don't. My shop. I mean, granted, Richard. God, you're a jerk. Nobody my shop, granted, is bigger than Joe's shop. Yes, I have a 2-car garage in a home. That's my shop. And I'm sorry for the perspective difference. You know, I mean, reality's reality. But in the States, that's really not a huge space. It's not a small space. I'm not saying it's a small space, but it's not a huge space. The obstacles I look at for projects that I'm doing that I've never done before is skill. My skill level. But here's the kind of the twist of that. If somebody says, I need you to make this, and I look at it and I go, wow, I don't know if I can do that. Because man, that's really what they're expecting is really, really nice. That's it kind of scares you. You know, you undertake this project, you're kind of scared about it. Those are actually the kind of projects I like. Because they're challenging to you, and they don't always come out with the way you wanted them to. But I would say the obstacle I put in front of myself, self-imposed obstacle, is my skill. Can I actually physically do this? And so I've got to get beyond that. But then it goes back to talking about what Alan was talking about for the past couple of weeks. It's about, are you, an I can or I can't kind of person. Work your way. If you work your way through problems, and I think Joe mentioned this on a previous episode too, when he was talking about his rocking chair build. If you look at it in totality all at once, it's a wow. Man, that's overwhelming. But if you look at it as a step by step, if I do this and I do it right, and then if I go on to step 2 and do this and do it right, you realize that it's really just a bunch of small problems and small things you put together, and all of a sudden you wind up with something that's magnificent. So my only advice would be work your way through any problems instead of, rather than being one of those persons that just looks at something and says, I can't do that, and just dismisses it. I can't do that for whatever reason. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. I don't have that kind of wood, blah, blah, blah. Rather than saying, I can't do that, turn around and look at it and go, well, I can't do exactly that, but what can I do? And then you're still moving forward in that way if you have that kind of mindset. So that's the only kind of advice I could give, because that's kind of the mentality I have. Look, okay, I can't do that because I can't afford all that walnut to build this walnut hutch, but what can I do? And it may say, I can make that out of pine. Okay, then I'm going to make it out of pine. So money, I can't afford the walnut, I can afford the pine. Well, then go make it out of pine. That's kind of how I look at obstacles.
Yeah, there's always going to be a way round.
Yes.
I think a lot of these obstructions are actually self-imposed rather than externally placed on us.
Agreed.
And that was where I was going to go with all of these. Money is self-imposed because we've got responsibilities. Alan's got 4 other mouths to feed. Joe's only got a set amount of space. Presumably, your wife wouldn't be too happy, Alan, but you could be just Jack and say, do you know what? It's jam sandwiches for the rest of the week, and I'm going to buy all this walnut. Or, sorry, Mum and Dad, but I'm taking over the conservatory and the dining room, and if you don't like it, move out. Get me a bigger shed. So from that point of view, there's a way around it, but it's not necessarily a practical way around it. So, you end up putting off a project or doing this or doing that or bringing things out. But that's not a reason to say, oh, I'm not doing that. Does that make sense? What would be your take on that, Jamie?
Yeah, I totally agree. For me, there's obviously the money aspect, just like there is with everybody else. And again, with the space for a lot of people over in the UK, and obviously even over in the States and various other places in the world. But then you also get people that have got old sheds or old workshops and things like that. Them places need restoration. Me, for example, not so long ago, my roof started leaking. And that needed repairing, because if it didn't, my tools were going to get damaged.
Yep.
It's sort of like you could be working away one day, the next thing you know, you've got a massive hole in your roof. Everything has to come to a standstill Otherwise, you have nothing.
How do you get over it though, Jeremy? I mean, when you're faced with an obstacle, like I mean, I guess what I'm asking you, how do you personally work your way through that? I can't do this because.
You go and find someone that wants about 100 blue bloody pens.
Well, that's obvious. Well, that is an obstacle, I guess, but it doesn't really pertain to making, because you could make 100 bloody blue pens right now if you wanted to, because obviously you have the stock. But I was just more curious about, if you wanted to do something and all of a sudden you didn't have it, how would you go about resolving that issue?
I don't know. I'd just go in search of it, I suppose, until I found it.
Well, see, that's
a simple answer.
Perfect example, because if you're stuck and you're an obstacle, and guys, Joe will probably chime into this too.
Normally, I'd go to Joe, because Joe's always got the answer.
Well, you know what? And maybe because Joe's a smart guy, and he is. Search engines, people. If you have a question, you got an obstacle. I can't do this, but I want to do this. Google is your friend. YouTube is your friend. The two largest search engines there are, and there's going to be somebody somewhere out there showing you how to get it done without having to do it the way that you're thinking you can't because of whatever constriction that you have on yourself. So you utilize the search engines. Find some avenue in which you can complete what you want to do. And I think a lot of the people's frustrations, and forgive me if I'm wrong, and I don't mean to offend anybody by saying this, but I see a lot of people dismissing things, going, "I can't do that," or whatever the case may be. They're willing to dismiss it very quickly because we're in kind of this "I want it now" kind of atmosphere. And you know what? A lot of things that take time, and if you don't have patience and aren't willing to work your way through problems, then you probably shouldn't be in the maker world to begin with, because I don't care if you're a woodworker, metal worker, whatever the case may be. If you don't have patience, you're going to end up with crap at the end of the day. So the I want it now mentality and then dismissing it because you can't have it now is not the approach you want to take if you're going to be doing anything that's going to be creative or worthwhile.
I think from just to sort of add to your want it now attitude, I've made some bad decisions in terms of tool purchases because I wanted it now, and you end up not using it as much as perhaps you think you would have, and therefore potentially wasting money, which is then increasing the obstacle if money is an obstacle to making these. And also, when you watch scrapwood projects, when you're starting, I remember when I was sort of starting out in woodworking in terms of having a dedicated workspace to work, I didn't have any scrap wood because I hadn't made anything that had scrap left over. Now I've got, bits and pieces of this, that, and the other, and it's readily available. So I used to buy big bits of walnut. I'd buy more than I needed for a project.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you've got I've got a chance to mess a component up and remake it. But also, you buy like a turning blank, or I'm here now, so I might buy 2 or 3 turning blanks, but only use one of them. Or you buy 2 boards instead of 1 board, and you kind of accumulate it. Now I'm moaning that I've got too much, and I started out just buying bits of wood. So that's a space constraint. We're all limited by space, and I'm taking it up with timber that I probably might not even ever use.
Right.
Moaning about money because I've made a rash decision based on wanting it now to start with, and now I'm saying I can't afford this project because I haven't got the money because I've spent it on something. It's like, goes back to what I was saying about the whole self-imposed thing. It kind of comes back at you to bite in some respects.
You say that you've got too much wood in that on your shelves and things like that. Would you like a few blue acrylic blanks just to tighten it up?
Yes, I'm never going to turn things away, but I know, logically speaking, and looking at it as a grown-up and thinking, if I never bought another wood turning blank, I probably still wouldn't get through all of what I've got, realistically.
Yeah, you could just cut it all up into blanks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, I did actually have some 2-inch thick oak slabs, which I bought from a wood fair about 5 years ago. And the board was taking up too much room. So I cut it up into bowl blanks. And now I've got loads of oak bowl blanks, which are easier to store, but I haven't got. And then it was like, I the other week making these cabinets for Catherine's for her TVs. I could have used that as a top on one of these cabinets without having to then go out and buy another one. And it was like, what an idiot. It's all sitting there, but it's unusable because they're in circles. And it's that lack of thought, that lack of experience, and that I want it now mentality, which potentially will come back and bite you. It can be as much of frustration and self-imposed as it can be anything else.
Going back to you, Chris, talking about the skill set, and Alan about the knowledge, I don't get often asked to do commissions, but as we've spoke a little bit about the rocking chair, when I was very first asked to make that rocking chair, my initial response was, no, I can't do that. That's far too big of a project for me to ever be able to take on. And I took a step back from it, and I thought, well, if I don't accept any money up front for the project, I'll use all of my own resources to actually fund the project from start to finish. Then I've got no weight on my shoulders of having to produce something because I've received no money for it. So all the way through the build, I haven't got that pressure knowing if I mess this up, I've wasted somebody else's money. It's all on me. And at the end of it, if the person who's buying it from me isn't happy with it, I can always keep it, or I could sell it on to a third party. So some others might be in that situation. Somebody might ask you to make something that you feel is far beyond your skill set. But I'm sure if you gave it a go, if you took the pressure off and just thought, I'll just make it for myself, I'm sure it'll turn out a lot better than you expected. And then you'd have that skill under your belt then to move forward.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know, I used to do some work because I've never done a lot of commission work because I've never really done this as a living. But people would come up to me knowing that I had, the skills to do what they wanted to have done. And I would only accept it by saying to them, I will do it. But the key question as to whether I will or will not is, when do you want this? And if they told me next week, that would say, then you're looking at the wrong guy. Because I've never done this before, and I'm going to take my time, because when I do things, I want to do them right. And if I'm doing it for the first time, this is going to take some time, because I'm not only building the project, which takes, obviously a professional X amount of time, but I'm a novice. So there's a learning curve that has to go along with this. And so if you're willing to accept this when it's done, whenever it's done, then I'll be happy to do it. But if you're not, then I don't think I'm your guy. Go find somebody else.
That could be a good sort of technique or tactic or business strategy, for want of a better expression, for somebody who's maybe thinking about branching out into a bit of custom work. I've just finished actually this week doing some storage boxes for a customer that I had 2 years ago, and he wanted these specifically sized wooden plywood storage boxes, and he had a few ideas about the design and this, that, and the other. And he said, I'm in no rush for it. I said, okay, yeah, fair enough. And we spent about 2 months kind of backwards and forwards over the final design. And it was built, and I knew what I wanted, the way I wanted to build it, how we discussed, but I didn't quite know how it was going to work, because I'd never done it before. It was a completely new sort of technique for me. As a result of that, because he hadn't actually got a time frame, I was able to say, right, I'll make them, and when I'm happy to release them to you, then we can talk about how you want it to be delivered and how you want it to be getting paid. And I finished it, and he paid. And now he's paid, the onus is on me to now deliver them, rather than having them sit around. They've got to be delivered, and then I can get them out. So that's another thing. Does anyone else experience that?
Well, I've got the experience with the time problems, because such as the rocking chair, I keep going back to this rocking chair. Such a big project. I was worried with the lady who's actually asked me to make it, that she might want it in a couple of months' time, and of course that would be a big no from me. But very kindly, she was very similar. I'm not in any big rush. Take as long as you need. If it takes years, I don't mind. I'd like you to build it for me. And that was, I mean, you're not going to get that every day. I understand that. But when those opportunities come around, I think you've really got to jump on board with it and take the opportunity that's in front of you. Because the way that I look at a project like that, I'm not actually going to make any money on it, because I'm just going to ask her to reimburse me for the cost of materials. But the money that I've put out, it's gone from me now. So when I get that money back, it will feel like I'm in profit kind of thing, because that money, I spent that money last year, like 6 months ago. So when I get it in 6 months' time, it's like saving in a way. So I put the money there.
Right.
Let's not touch it and then get it in the future.
So in a roundabout way, you're just getting paid for your education, kind of, sort of. Which, you know what, we all have to be willing to do at some point in time.
Definitely.
And I'll point this back to Alan, because Alan, and this is off subject from woodworking, but Alan got that really nice jointer that he has in his shop. And it's, granted, it's not huge, but it is a nice old vintage jointer. But when he got that thing was in bad shape. Now, if somebody had given that to you and said, Alan, I want this thing up and running and done in a week because I need you to do something for me, that project probably wouldn't have happened. How long did it take you to actually refinish that jointer?
I want to say about 6 months. It took me a couple of days to tear it apart. I did everything correctly, taking pictures, labeling everything, all that kind of stuff. Did all the usual, sanded it down, refinished the top, all that. And it took me about 2 months to get it back together. Stupid, weird little problem with it was the back fence wasn't sitting absolutely perfect on the top of it when I put it back together. So I couldn't raise and lower the infeed table correctly. And it was throwing off every joint I tried to make. But you couldn't see just by looking at it that the back fence was the problem. I thought my problem was the cutter head, and I kept taking the cutter head out and putting it back in and putting new knives on it. I thought I didn't know how to set it correctly. It was quite the learning experience until sitting across the shop one day from a distance, having a look at it. I could see the line of light coming from between the fence and the bed. It was just like a 30-second difference on one side than the other. And it just, like a light just went off. I was like, oh, that's why I can't raise my bed up correctly. It's such a stupid little problem.
But let me ask you a question, because I had an ulterior motive to asking you this question. You spent, like you said, almost 6 months reconditioning that jointer. You probably now know how it works inside and out, right?
You know, absolutely.
And how much do you love that jointer right now? Do you love it?
Absolutely. Favorite tool.
All right. Then here we go. Let's just say, let's go back to the I want it now type of mentality. If someone had just pulled in and you're into your shop and given you a brand new jointer, would you still have the same pride affiliated with the brand new jointer you just received, or would you? Or no? So there is a matter.
No thanks. I'll keep my beaver. Thank you.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. There's a certain amount of satisfaction that really goes into working towards getting to where you want to be. And as far as obstacles go, that's how I kind of sort of look at them. It's like nobody loves this. I shouldn't say that's a bad word. I enjoy having, it's like Richard said, you know, when somebody tells me you can't do that, that's the first thing I'm going to do. I have that mentality. So I look at project or obstacles the same way. You can't do this because, and I go, oh, well, I don't care. I am going to do that. You know, hold my beer and watch me. And, you know, by the end of the day, if I'm determined enough, I will accomplish that task. And I will have a certain amount of pride, like you have in that jointer, Alan, that I would not have had if somebody had just gifted that thing to me and all of a sudden, or if I had the money to just go out and buy it. There's a certain amount of, I don't know, maker pride that you get by doing things on your own that I don't think can be replaced with the instant gratification of I want it now.
Yeah, I'd definitely back that up for sure. But does anyone ever had or experienced the sort of the obstacle of just not wanting to do it that day? Do you know what I mean? You like, I've got to go out in the workshop and do whatever.
Yeah, I mean, a few times I've gone out there before, and a lot of the times it's the weather factor has gone out there and it's just too damn cold.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, well, no, not today, ain't happening. So I'll just turn straight back. Other times things have just got to be done, so you have to put a coat on or whatever. But it's like, I can't remember what I was saying to the other day. it's gotten to a point where I've had to put on so many coats and so many jumpers that I look like I'm jacked up muscle man, and I can't move my arms. So like, sorry, trying to do a turning project or a scroll saw project, and like your arms look like they're carrying 2 rolls of carpet under each one, and it doesn't work. So you end up having to come back in anyway because you just can't work in them conditions. So yeah,
sometimes you go out and it's like, do you know what? I'm just not feeling it this afternoon. Or I'm going to go and do something else.
You get a woodworking funk. I'm sure we all get it.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's there are times you just have to step back. I guess I just kind of look at things and go, yeah, it's just not happening today. I'm gonna go take the dog for a walk instead. It's just not gonna happen.
I had that, a couple of times in the last couple of weeks with things, and one of them actually, going back to these boxes, it was I wasn't quite sure how it was going to happen and I was kind of thinking it through in my head, and I just like, it's cold out there and I don't quite know what, and it's not going to happen. And I did exactly that. I took the dog out for a walk and walking the dog, and that's when I had the conversation about, that's how I know what I'm going to be doing for Steve's collaboration project, which I've now got a time constraint for that I've got to do. So that's the kick to kind of stop that I can't be bothered sort of attitude.
Right.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And
all magnets flow according to the whim of the great magnet.
Speaking of Steve, thanks for not having him on this week. It means I can actually talk.
Well, we put it to a vote, and I was outvoted. So you can thank the other guys for that, Jamie.
That guy was a ball buster.
Yeah.
In other words, we had a secret vote, and Richard voted to dump you, and we all decided to keep you. So that's why you're still.
That's all right.
That's why Steve isn't the 5th guest this week.
Richard wanted to carry on being the monumental talker.
Well, I'm trying desperately not to.
That's all right. Can we focus this back real quick and get real specific about a certain subject? And let's talk. Let's say the 5 of us are standing around, and there's a gentleman or a lady standing in front of us who has absolutely no money, no funds, no shop. Okay, but she wants to. I don't care. Pick a tool, whatever. Pick something that she wants to go ahead and get so that she can continue her making career. And I bring this topic up only because I want to emphasize the point of patience once again. This person has a simple tool in their hand. It's the only tool they can afford, and it's a knife. And they've got woods next to them. But let's say they want to go out and buy, and I don't want to go dropping names here, but a super nice table saw so they can start sawing wood. How would you suggest that person go from point A and get to point B? I can give you my thoughts initially if you'd like. And my thoughts are this. If you have a knife and you have wood, start carving and start selling your carvings. Pocket your money. Save for the tool that you want. Because unless you are, silver spoon in mouth or have made it in the world and have money coming out your ears, that is part of the process of building up a shop and getting to where you want to be. So it goes back to those guys in our videos that go say, well, I could do that too if I had that tool. Well, you know what? I don't know how everybody else is because everybody's different, but I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I don't have that kind of money. If I have that tool, I can guarantee you I carved a lot of wood to get there. I just was trying to let the process be known and kind of get you guys' thoughts on that.
Well, there is the option. If you've got the knife in hand, then you could of course just walk into any tool shop and demand the table saw with the knife in hand, and I'm sure they would just give it you.
Then you wind up on the evening news and you're a super popular personality, but unfortunately you're behind bars. Yeah.
Your YouTube channel is getting rid of.
No, I got to second what Chris has said. You've always got something at your disposal. if it's a pair of scissors and you find yourself you've got a bunch of old clothes in your wardrobe, and you can cut up those clothes and make a patchwork quilt that you can then sell on to get some money to buy some different materials. You can spend your time making something that you're not particularly interested in that area of making, but if it gets you to where you want to be, then it's all worthwhile, and you'll pick up skills along the way that'll be invaluable when you're doing what you're actually interested in doing. That's
really the only answer there is that I can see, is you have to work your way up.
Yeah, there was, I think, was it Izzy that did that $50 wood shop thing?
It was,
That's kind of along them lines, wasn't it? He made a table or something like that, didn't he? And he's kind of sold that on, and I think it's a little bit of a shame that he kind of stopped it, but that was kind of a good show. But that's kind of the basis of what Chris was talking about.
Yeah, because he started that series, I think, on the back of a handheld circular saw that he ended up turning into a table saw. And from the table saw, he made different things that he ended up making other things out of. Yeah, so it's just like, it's a process.
Yeah, a slow one, but a process at that.
We should put that playlist in the show notes.
Yeah, that's a good series. Yeah, and I was going to just coming back to what you were saying, Chris, about you've got your knife, you've got your bit of wood, start carving things, and then sell your carvings. Yeah, a lot of people get kind of fixated almost with making things to sell for money to expand the hobby. And that's fine, because that is an option.
Yes.
But there's another option that I think people sometimes lose track of. Let's say you need a table in your house, or you need a chair, or you need a shelf putting up, or you need a bed. Most people will go out and they'll buy a table, a bed, a shelf, or whatever. But if you make that shelf, it doesn't have to be the super expensive whatever. It could just be a shelf to tide us over. And then, yes, you might have to spend a few quid on the materials and perhaps a tool to do it, but you've got your shelf and you've got the tool that you maybe had to buy, but you haven't had to go out and buy the shelf. So you've sort of saved money from one place and put it in another, and still ended up with the same kind of finished result. Does that make sense?
Yep, so you're investing in a tool and materials that can save money in the long run, because then you've got the tool, you've got the knowledge to then save you money in the future.
Yeah, because not only have you invested in it's not a case of you go out and buy the tool to make the thing, but you've invested the money that you would have spent on the item in the first place. And that's, I think, an avenue which people overlook or forget about. As well as using those things to sell, because I think it can be a bit disconcerting or downheartening when you make something and nobody wants to buy it, because it's difficult to go out and say, all right, I'll make that for you and you can buy it off me, because otherwise everyone would have customers coming out their ears. So there's another option there as well, and that happening over time. I mean, look what Joe Bates did with his workshop. If you're new to his channel and you see he's got saw stock table saw and an enormous rigid or Laguna bandsaw in a massive workshop with some beautiful expensive hand tools, and people forget that he started working, selling picnic benches out of 4x2s in an apartment block where he worked as the maintenance guy.
Right.
And that was only 3 years ago. 3 years is not a long time. Think about what we were doing 3 years ago and you think, wow, actually, that's not that long ago. But when you try and look forward in 3 years' time, it's like, oh, that's way off. No, now I'm thinking. Do you see where I'm going with it? There's other avenues and...
Yeah, because if you have your mindset on 3 years down the road, you're putting a brick wall up that you are telling yourself, I'm never going to get over. Quit looking at 3 years down the road. Look at what I need to do in order to get to where I want to be is the whole process. And that is, that's the process of making, for crying out loud. Look at what the final project is going to be, or what you want it to be, and take the steps necessary in order to build it. And you will get there.
That's exactly how I built my shop 1.5 years ago, I had nothing in this room but a stack of 2x4s and a dirty old door top. And I didn't think 5 years from now I want to have a $10,000 shop. I thought, okay, first I need a planer because I need to make this thing thinner. Now I need a table saw because I need to rip these boards down. And I just took it one tool at a time until I got to where I wanted to be.
I'll tell you how I started as a kid. And I don't think I've told the story before. And I say as a kid, but I was in my late teen years, early 20s. I don't quite remember exactly how old I was. But most of I spent a lot of time doing refinishing work for people when I was in my teenage years. And just because I had learned, I forget how I even learned how to do refinishing work, but every now and then we'd get, I got known for being able to redo old furniture and make it look new again. And I had a friend come to me that actually worked with me, and he had just recently gotten married. So I had to be in my early 20s. He had just recently gotten married, and his wife had a family heirloom. It was a cedar chest that she had, that her mother had, and that her grandmother had. And this was a gorgeous cedar chest and had copper strapping all over the front of it and around the edges of it and things of that nature. And he says, do you think you could do this and refinish it so that I could give it to her as my wedding gift to her? And I went, well, absolutely I can. And he asked, it was like 6 months before he got married. And I had never done this before. And I said, he goes, well, how much are you going to charge me? I said, I'll tell you what, let me do it. When I'm done with the project, I'll give it to you, and then you pay me what you think it's worth. Because he was a friend. And he went, okay, we'll do it that way. That's fine. And I redid this thing. I don't mind telling you, Richard, this thing, the wood that was in it, that it had to be over 150 years old. The cedar was absolutely gorgeous. And I took all the copper off, and I cleaned it, I shined it, I put it back on, refinished it. This thing was a phenomenal piece. I don't mind telling you, and it wasn't necessarily because of my work; it was the materials that made it look really nice. And I gave it to him, and I brought it to work one day. I said, "I've got your chest done for you for your wife." And he goes, "Let's go see it." And I took the blanket off of it, and he was wowed. He was like, "Oh my God, is that really the same thing?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "What do you want me to pay you?" I go, Jim was his name. I said, Jim, pay me what you think you want to pay for it. He paid me $700 for that.
Whoa.
Excellent. That $700 is where I bought my first table saw.
Nice.
That's brilliant.
These things could happen. You know the Christmas reindeer video I put out?
Yes.
Christmas. I think I mentioned it in the video. I certainly have talked about it with you guys on the show. I made loads of those 5-6+ years ago at the place where I was working, and it just exploded. And there were people from all over the company coming and just saying, "Oh, can you make me one?" Or "I want a family of 3," or this, that, and that started some pennies rolling in. And I used that to pay for my lathe and my bandsaw, which I'd actually got not in the way that you should buy tools, should I say. I basically used that money and paid off that tool. So I was lucky there, but you could potentially, no, I'm not going to recommend anyone does it that way. That was lucky. But, you can live a dangerous life doing that.
Well, I guess what I was trying to say is my knowledge and some relatively, when you stop and look at it, some relatively cheap finishes paid for the project I was looking for. So if you have nothing, then if you're going to invest in anything, invest in your own knowledge, because you will learn things that will teach you how to do other things and do it inexpensively to get to where you want to go, if that makes sense.
I have actually bought tools specifically for job. I did a job, a whole load of custom wardrobes, and it was cheaper, for all parties concerned, for me to spend over £700 on one tool for that one job, because of the speed that I was working. Yeah. So that 700 quid was actually cheaper in the tool than it would have been in my time to make it in a different way. Now, if you're making things for people for money, that is likely to be a consideration, because all businesses have to consider, investment in materials and tools and time. But if you're making stuff for yourself, that's not the way to think, because time is not necessarily the case. You know, Alan could have built the same things I did in his weekend slots and not had that time pressure. And that's something that, you know, we have to decide ourselves. Is the time constraint there? In which case that then shifts the emphasis into another direction. And if it's not, then don't put pressure on yourself in other avenues if you don't need to. That was where I was going to go with that.
I've got a question. I'll throw out real quick because it was given to us a while ago and we failed to address it. Amanda Blakesley wants to know when Jamie is getting a translator. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Anyway,
as soon as I can get one for her dad.
Oh, God.
Jerry, you have a great daughter, by the way. Thank you. All right. I'm sorry. We got 10 minutes left. Things can go a little aloof. You know?
Absolutely. Do you know what? I get comments on my videos from people saying they can't understand me. And it's weird because I genuinely can't fathom that myself. I can understand all you guys, you know, and obviously, you know, from Connecticut and Canada and, I mean, crikey, Wolverhampton, of all places. And I can understand Joe perfectly.
Oh, right.
But, yeah, exactly.
Wait a minute. What did you say?
Say crikey.
You said crikey at Wolverhampton? What was that?
Oh, crikey.
I'm just kidding, Richard. I heard you.
I know. But seriously, I've had comments saying, I can't understand what you're saying. And I genuinely don't know why that is. So, you know,
I get people asking me what I'm talking about.
A boot. What's a boot, man?
Do we have any questions, Richard? Do you have any more questions?
We do have some questions. Yeah, we've got some questions here that we could. To be honest, we could probably spill over into another show complete. But yeah, so the next question on the list. Forgive me, I have not got the person who asked this, but it was I think this came from Facebook, but don't quote me on that. The question is: if you can only work with one species of wood ever again, what would it be?
Walnut.
Just
tree wood.
Tree wood.
Yeah.
Tree wood.
The kind that comes from trees.
See, that's kind of cheating. That's, you know, one species. One wood species. That's it. So we've got walnut. Okay, but why walnut, Alan? What do you like about walnut?
Beautiful when oiled, and I love the way it smells when I'm cutting it. It's not just a joke on my YouTube channel. I genuinely love the way walnut looks and feels, and you know, some people say it's hard to work with. I find it easier than others, like white oak and whatnot. But I just absolutely love it. You put some linseed on it; it's just beautiful. I wasn't better, Chris.
No, that's all right. That's because I mean, walnut is a freaking given, but I have two. One would be curly maple. And the other would be yellow birch.
They're quite different. I haven't worked with curly birch. It was curly maple and yellow birch. Yellow birch, yeah. My mistake. I haven't worked with yellow birch, but a little bit of curly maple, and that's quite nice to. Again, I like an oil finish on that.
Well, the only reason why I say yellow birch is because, in my opinion, and everybody's opinion differs, and you know, I don't want to get into a scientific thing because somebody could say, "Well, he's wrong because these things are different." But I find that, like Alan, yellow birch, working with yellow birch is a lot like working with walnut. The way the wood actually, when you're working with it is a lot like acting with walnut because it's a pretty hard wood, but it's absolutely gorgeous when it's finished. So yeah, that would be curly maple and yellow birch.
Cool. Okay. Joe, you're going to say walnut?
Yeah, I'm going to say walnut, but I would look at it more just literally from the aesthetic point of view. Walnut, out of all the species, I think it's the one that suits every kind of interior design the best. I mean, some of the lighter wood, such as oak, I think can look out of place in some settings, but in my personal opinion, walnut can look at home in a real traditional, like old-fashioned kind living room, and it would look nice in a sleek modern bedroom also. So if I could only stick with one species forever, walnut would be my go-to one for definite.
Yeah, it does look good everywhere, doesn't it? You can't find a bad contrast for walnut.
Yep.
Unless it's flying under your face, because I saw that video. That was actually a good contrast. I'm sorry, Alan. Jamie, what about you, man?
Plywood.
What?
No.
That's a good one.
Think about that for a second.
That actually is a good one.
Not a species, but still.
I don't know. I mean,
Where do those plywood trees grow?
They only grow in Wolfhampton.
No, we've got MDF trees here.
I don't actually know, to be honest. I mean, so far to date, with regards to bowl turning, the two favourite woods that I've used to turn with has been a pear wood, and that turned absolutely beautifully, and maple. They're I think the top two favourites that I've turned. I've never actually turned walnut, or I don't believe I've turned walnut. There was one that looked like walnut to me, but it had some weird name to it. So, but yeah, pear and maple for me.
Nice.
That's interesting. I'm gonna go with a nice English ash. I nearly went with sycamore because I love sycamore. I think sycamore is probably my favourite wood. I don't get to use it very often, but I'm going to go with English ash because it kind of can look like oak, only much lighter, but it's got that nice light colour. In terms of the grain is like oak, but in terms of colour, it's like sycamore, and I really love that beautiful pale colour, and I prefer it to maple. Much prefer it to maple because it's nice and clean.
Oh,
so
okay.
that would be my answer. But, yeah, I like answering the questions last because it gives me a chance to actually think about the answer. So what's everyone watching at the moment? Alan, what are you working on and or watching?
I am watching and listening to a new podcast called Made by Nation. That's Matt Haas, Eloy Escajada, and Ryan Bitters.
Yeah.
They're doing the video portion over on Awesome Wood Things channel, and you can also find it on SoundCloud. The guys are absolutely hilarious. They do all their prep work live on YouTube every week, and it's hilarious. I was on it last week, and Jamie was on it the first week, I believe. So
yeah, I was on it fanboying over Paul Jackman.
Yeah, and I was fanboying over my man Rick Wilkie. So go over and watch that live. Check him out on SoundCloud. It's really funny stuff. I think that's really going to go somewhere.
Cool. Are you working on anything at the moment, or presumably you're...
Absolutely not. I'll get to it next week. It's kind of a long story, but I just got a new computer in that I've been spending the weekend getting set up. But we're out of time for that this week. We'll do that next week.
Rightio. Okay then, Joe. What are you watching and working on?
Well, I've been working on the Power Ranger bed still all this week, which has meant that I haven't been able to watch anything on YouTube. So I'm actually going to shout out a channel that I do watch regularly when I'm actually watching YouTube, and that's Linus Tech Tips. He could be classed as a maker because he makes custom PCs, but he reviews all different tech, and it's a proper business. Linus Tech Tips is, so they're constantly reviewing the latest tech and giving advice for different builds and stuff like that. And I know a lot more people in the maker community shifting over to the technology side, whether it's new computers or just different like CNCs and stuff like that. So it's really useful channel to have on your subscription list. So that's Linus Tech Tips on YouTube.
Cool. Well, definitely worth a look out there. So what about you, Jamie? Anything exciting going on?
Yeah, I have been watching The Wizard from Wolverhampton, Average Joe's Joinery, our very own.
I'll pay you later.
Oh, somebody's sucking up.
Yeah. I watched his passport holder with the resin window. Because
that was a cool project.
Yeah, it was a very cool project. As a lot of you know, I'll be also flying out to the States.
God, help us. No way. Really?
In March, yeah. I'll be flying out on the 29th of March to the 12th of April and attending the Atlanta Woodworking Show.
There goes the neighborhood.
So, yeah, there you go. So I could relate to that, and I'm actually thinking about making one for myself.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Are you going to be doing any vloggy, video-y, kind of broadcasty Facebook
I was thinking about doing something along those lines because obviously I'll be at the woodworking show with everybody. So yeah, why not?
Cool. And Chris, are you going to excite us with something good this week?
I don't know if I'm going to excite you or not. I'll try. I am watching Bill Sin. If you're familiar with Bill Sin, I don't know if you are. The Bill Sin Workshop on YouTube. Gentleman out of Germany. He just made his latest video. I think was he made a printer stand out of reclaimed wood, and the colors he got out of that wood and the build itself was really, really nice. So if you haven't had a chance, check out Bill Sin Workshop on YouTube, because he does great videography and his projects are cool, and hopefully we can get him on the podcast sometime in the future, because I think he's just he seems like a good guy. But as far as what I've been up to, Steve Twidell, there you go, bingo, Make It Matter collaboration that's due out this coming Sunday or Saturday, excuse me, this coming Saturday. So I'm doing a collaboration with Jason McGinn. He and I are working on a project for that. So that's currently what I'm working on. We'll have that out, knock on wood. It'll get done by Saturday.
Excellent. Well, I'm working on mine as well. I haven't actually started it yet, but at least I know what I'm doing. But the nightmare is it's got to be out on Saturday. I've got my daughter this weekend and I'm teaching Friday, so I've only actually got 4 days to do it. So out of a week, I've got 4 days. So I'm pretty much running around like a headless chicken doing that at the moment. But I genuinely hope I'll get it done. Panic. Right. So what am I watching? I don't know if you guys have heard of this channel. It's not a maker channel, but it is really cool. It's called the Today I Found Out on YouTube. And they actually put out video, or the guy that does the channel, he puts a video out every single day. And it's all about just random weird things that you've probably wondered about but never knew why. So one I watched this week was why they use the word Mayday, for like plane emergencies and boat emergencies.
Right.
And why tinfoil is only shiny on one side and matte on the other side.
Okay.
All these random things which are actually genuinely interesting. I find it really quite cool. So Today I Found Out on YouTube was really, really good. So go and check those out as well.
Awesome.
So excellent. I think that pretty much wraps up the show. Joe's nodding like a lunatic because he doesn't want to do all the editing. He's got better things to do. So
come on, I've got a plane to catch.
Chris, where can everyone find you, Chris?
Easy enough. Make the First Cut on Facebook, Chris Cute on YouTube.
Alan?
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube under the Woodworking Junkie.
Jamie?
You can find me on YouTube at JP Woodwork and Instagram and Twitter on JP_Woodwork.
And Joe?
Average Joe's. Join me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Average Joe's Photography on Instagram.
Wow, that was a lot slower than last week. That was good.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, everyone listening, make sure you go and check out and subscribe to these guys on all their various social platforms, YouTubes and all the rest of it. And you come along and subscribe to the Makers International podcast as well over on Twitter and on SoundCloud or on iTunes or on, just checking the notes below, whatever you're listening on at the moment, because there'll be a link to all our platforms there. So excellent. Well, I have been Rick Morley, as usual. You can find me at brainfizz.uk and under my name on YouTube. So once again, thanks for listening this week, and we'll see you again next time. So you take care.
All right, guys. Have a great week.
See you next week.
Toodaloo.
Have a week.
I don't know if I'm going to excite you or not. I'll try.